Hello everyone, welcome to the first ever episode of the Redzone Review Podcast. I would sound more enthusiastic, but today I want to start the video with a moment of silence for George Floyd, and anybody else who has been killed because of injustice. Please join me in moments of silence. Thank you. With that being said, today's the first episode of the Redzone Review Podcast. This is my first time ever doing a live stream, so I'm going to hope it does well, and we're just going to go for it today. So, let's get right into it. I'm first going to explain a little bit of what the show will be about in all the episodes. So, this is a football podcast, but I might mix in some other sports. As you know, my channel's name is Riley's Redzone. You can see it in that corner. So I decided to call this the Redzone Review. It's like, you're reviewing if they got a touchdown. I was thinking the Redzone Report or that, and I think this fits it better because I am giving my review of different things in sports compared to breaking the news. So I'm going to also each episode explain what's the setup. I'm going to be switching this up every episode based on what we're talking about. Today's segments we will be talking about is numbers 90 through 81 on my top 100 list, which if you have not seen the video from last week, you should check that out so you can keep up to date with that. I might be breaking the rest of those on this show. So today will be numbers 90 through 81. I will also be talking about the Justyn Ross news, as well as some college quarterback transfers going into this season. So with the set today, I'm planning to have the pylon there and this other pylon there all the time, and the football, but the rest of it is going to be sort of switching each episode. I'm also going to be planning to put these shelves up in the air so you can see more. But today, I have a Lions helmet because it's my only full-sized helmet, as well as there will be a player on the Lions in the top 100, so stay tuned. I also have the NFL 100 helmet. That's one of my favorite helmets, and it so happens I'm doing my top 100 players, so I thought that was a good one. We have a Clemson helmet because of Justyn Ross. We have a Georgia helmet because of two of them, actually. Two quarterbacks transferred to Georgia. As well as we have an AJ Green, who's on the top 100, another sneak peek, as well as Ben Roethlisberger this episode. So you've gotten two for sure players that you know are on my list, as well as some hints for the next ones. But today I'm wearing Kirk Cousins' jersey, but I will be trying to switch up the jerseys or shirts every video to get some different fans' opportunities to view that. So, let's start here. I'm going to do a scene switch to my top 100. So, starting at number 90, I have Preston Smith, who is a outside linebacker edge rusher for the Green Bay Packers. So, in 2019, Smith had 56 tackles, 12 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and 23 QB hits. He had a very productive season, and I think it's great that they have two edge rushers that are high quality. You'll see Zadarius Smith might be higher up on this list, but it sort of allows each other to bounce off. Like, if one's being double teamed, then the other one can get a lot of production. So, I think he's a great player here that has had a lot of production, and I think he can probably repeat this success as a Packer, was on the Redskins before that. At number 89, this may be a little controversial, but I have Jadeveon Clowney. This may be high, some of you may be thinking, but he isn't even on a team right now, technically. But I think he has a lot of potential still, and although the injuries are sort of a risk, I think he's asking for a little bit too much money. He should be signed with the team right now if he was willing to go a little bit lower on the pay. But with that being said, he did get 13 QB hits, which I can't find the pressure rate, but what I do know is although he only had 3 sacks, he has a high pressure rate. He's able to get a lot of QB pressures on the quarterback, and so in 2019, he was on the Seahawks for the first time, which he had 31 tackles, 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. He also had a pick. I'm confirming, guys, that I am in fact on stream on YouTube, and yes, it is. Here we go. I am here, which is exciting because this is my first time live streaming. So, next on the top 100 is Allen Robinson. He honestly, I think would be higher on the list if he had a better quarterback. With Mitchell Trubisky, a.k.a. Trubisky, he had 98 catches for 1,147 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's a very productive season. He sort of bounced back. Obviously, he had some good seasons with Blake Bortles in Jacksonville. It's sort of unfortunate he's never really had a solid quarterback. So I think if Foles gets in there, otherwise if he goes to a different team or the Bears get a new quarterback, that'll be good for them. But next in the top 100 at number 87, I have AJ Green. You see him back there. But he did not play at all last year, so I do not have any stats for him. But I think he will get more production this year, obviously, than last year. But I think he was hurt the year before that, too. But he has Tyler Boyd, who, after having a few productive seasons, that the defenses might start to focus on Tyler Boyd a little bit more, which may open it up to A.J. Green, as well as they have T. Higgins now. And I think he's still a very good player, although he didn't play at all last year. He was hurt the year before that. I think he will be very productive. At number 86, this is the reason I have the Lions logo. Take a guess. It is Desmond Trufant, a free agency signing. Last year, here's what I thought was fascinating. He only played 9 games, but he had 4 interceptions in those 9 games. And he also had 18 tackles in the TFL. But 4 interceptions in only 9 games is crazy. That's really good. So he could have had, then you look at, close to maybe 6 or 7, maybe even 8. So I think that he is a defensive playmaker. He's not as good as Darius Slay. I will get that right out of the way. He is not as good as Darius Slay. Darius Slay will be higher on this list. But I think he's a playmaker on defense. And he'll be it was a good move by the Lions to replace Slay with somebody. As well as they have Jeff Okudah as well, but I think this was a good signing for them. At number 85 is based on pretty much mostly production, Robert Quinn, who signed with the Chicago Bears. In 2019, he had 11.5 sacks, 34 tackles, 13 TFLs, and 22 QB hits. You may be saying, oh, that's just because he was opposite DeMarcus Lawrence. That's why he got more opportunities. Well, what I say is that now Khalil Mack will be on the opposite side of him. So he will be able to because Mack will be double-teamed a lot of times, which opens it up for Robert Quinn to have another productive season. And I think that is a really big part of it, is I think he will succeed again solely because he's opposite of one of the best pass rushers, if not the best pass rusher in the league. At number 84, I have Jurrell Casey. He was traded to the Denver Broncos. Absolute steal of a trade. They only gave up a 7th-round pick, but I really thought that was a great move. Last year, he had 44 tackles, 5 sacks, 5 TFLs, and 10 QB hits. He can come from up the middle, and it was a great move for them. You look at who's going after the quarterback for them with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and then you add Jurrell Casey into the mix. That's a huge upgrade for them, and I think that was one of the best moves of the offseason. So I think he will sort of rise back again and have another great season. Number 83, I have DeMarcus Lawrence. In 2019, he had 45 tackles, 5 sacks, 10 TFLs, and 16 QB hits. Although that's a little bit down compared to what he did in 2018, I think he will have a bounce-back season. Sort of what I was saying with Robert Quinn. I think he got a lot of attention last year, but I think that he will have a bounce-back season in 2020. Now, I will say 83 through 100 was very difficult, and if I'm looking back, I maybe would even switch up some more right now. But starting at 82, I think it's I'm going to say right now, a big teardrop. I think that the 83 through 100 are sort of in that tier, but then we have a big teardrop going into number 82, which is Ben Roethlisberger. Just like A.J. Green, he did not play at all last year, and you can see him, right there. But he didn't play at all last year, but he did trim his beard, which maybe could be an upgrade. We'll see. He still has Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he'll have a big bounce-back season. The Steelers, I think I was seeing with the whole 7-seed playoff situation, if last year it would have been in play, the Steelers would have made the playoffs. And they did that with only one game of Ben Roethlisberger, with players like Mason Rudolph and Devlin, a.k.a. Duck Hodges, at quarterback. So with him being there, I think that's a big upgrade. But at number 81, to finish off this podcast's Top 100 segment, is Marshawn Lattimore. I will say, you'll find out next episode, but I was debating between him and another corner for who will be 80 and 81. But at 81, it is Marshawn Lattimore. 2019, he had 57 tackles, an interception, and a TFL. I will say that was definitely a regression compared to the year before, but I think he's still a solid corner, and I think he will have a bounce-back season going into 2020. So that was the Top 100 segment. Like I said, make sure you watch the other video if you didn't already to see who 100 through 90 were. But also stay tuned for who will be higher on my list. Next, we're sort of going to be jumping into the college football news. Here's the smaller segment, but let's get right into it. Justyn Ross is out for the season. He is the Clemson wide receiver. In 2019, he had 865 yards and 8 touchdowns. The touchdowns are very significant. Trevor Lawrence is, as you saw, if you didn't already, in my top 25 college quarterbacks video, he was my number 1 quarterback. So this is a big hit to Trevor Lawrence. He's their number 1 receiver. And you look at who they have now, and he's going to be thrown to Amari Rodgers, which Amari Rodgers is not bad. He's decent, but I don't think he's a great number 1 receiver at the college level. So this is a significant hindrance to the Clemson receiving game. He was their number 1 receiver by far, and after T. Higgins, but this year he was going to be the number 1 receiver. And it's very unfortunate, too. We gotta hope he's okay. His football career could be over, unfortunately. It's a serious injury. I really hope he has a bounce back. I think he can do it. Well, I hope he can. But I think he would have been a great player this season. But we gotta pray for him because he has a, if you didn't know, it's like he has a joint, like a bone in his neck, in his back, I believe is what it is, are like connected, and they shouldn't be, and he's apparently had it since he was born. But definitely, it's crazy to think if he would have been hit wrong, something could have been really serious. But I'm glad they caught it, so he can get right and hopefully have a bounce back for Clemson. So we gotta hope that Justyn Ross can have a comeback. But now I think I'm going to get into probably what will be the biggest segment of today's episode, which we're going to be looking at college football transfers. I'm going to be talking about here, we got some main ones, and I'm going to at the end sort of mention a lot of them. So let's start with the Georgia quarterback, Jamie Newman, who is coming from Wake Forest. He will be the starter. And in 2019, he had 2,868 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. That is pretty good, especially for only being at Wake Forest. I think he will actually improve by being at a better program with more weapons. They always have a good running game. Plus, he's got some decent receivers there as well. But here's the interesting one. JT Daniels, this is more recent news. JT Daniels from USC transferred, and that was expected because Keaton Slovis, also in my top 25, he proved to be the guy. He was going to be the starter no matter what. But in 2019, 18, I believe, he was hurt, and I think with a more serious injury, but last year specifically, he also was hurt. So Keaton Slovis, as a freshman, went in there, and he took the job from him. He stole it from JT Daniels. But JT Daniels, I was very surprised he would transfer to Georgia, because he's clearly going to be the backup for the year one, but it does give Georgia a good backup. But I've been hearing what the plan might be is Newman starts this season, and then JT takes over after that. You look at the Georgia quarterback landscape, it's been interesting over the last 3 years. You know, you had Jake Fromm, then Jacob it was Jacob Eason, and then Jake Fromm took that over, and so Eason transferred, in which Justin Fields also transferred to Ohio State, and then you have now, after Fromm goes to the NFL, you have Newman switching in here. And he will be the starter. And then you have JT Daniels coming in behind there. So they're sort of running a success plan. You know, they're having people almost like the Packers coming in there. So I think that JT Daniels, although he won't be an upgrade this year, he will be a future starter, which is a good move, I guess, for them. Next, I'm going to talk about KJ Costello coming in from Stanford. He was hurt in 2019. But in 2018, he had 3,540 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. That's a pretty good stat line for being in a Power 5 conference. So he will be going to Mississippi State with Mike Leach in that offense. And I think he will succeed. He's sort of, I believe, a pocket passer. But, hey, Mike Leach has made Gardner Minshew pretty good. And then Anthony Gordon, actually, I thought was pretty good last year. So we'll see what he can do there. But I think that's a good move, getting a good quarterback in there that can hopefully fit Mike Leach's system. De'Aaron King, probably the most impactful transfer here. I think he has the best odds of any transfer to win the Heisman Trophy. So he's coming from Houston. Now, I remember it last year. It's a big, it was interesting last year. Here's what he did. He basically went into the season being Houston's quarterback. He plays about 3 games, and I think they went 1-2, and he realizes we're not winning it this year, which, honestly, it's hard to win a national championship if you're in the group of 5 anyways, but maybe he thought they had a chance. So he realizes it's over. It's over. So he basically says, I'm redshirting. And all the news at the time, at least from what I remember, was saying he's going to come back to Houston and rebuild the program for one last season. He's going to go all in. But then this offseason, he goes ahead and transfers to Miami, which I think was a smart move to go to a bigger college. Jaron Williams, the quarterback there, I think is trying to transfer. He has not transferred yet, but he got the job last year as a freshman. But he over Tate Martell, but I think that, and they have N'Kosi Perry as well, but King, I think, will be a Heisman candidate this year. He will be a top player in college football. So looking at his stats from 2018 in the AAC, he had 2,982 yards, 36 touchdowns, which is huge, and 6 interceptions. That is a massive stat line, and that's not really even considering his rushing ability. He's one of the most mobile quarterbacks in college football, and that's a huge part of his game. So he can be very efficient, and I think it was a good move for him to go to Miami. Next, we're going to talk about Felipe Franks. Felipe Franks has made a few miracle plays in his career, but his time at Florida is over. Last year, Kyle Trask, I remember specifically watching the Miami-Florida game because that was the first game of the season, and I was looking very forward to it. I remember watching that game. Florida was lucky to win that game. Felipe made some pretty bad decisions, but I can't remember whether it was that game or the next one, but one of the early games in the season, he ended up being hurt. And Kyle Trask came in there, and if you haven't watched my top 25 quarterbacks, I'm once again telling you to go watch that. he filled in very well. So it was clear that Trask would take the job. But in 2018, Franks had 24 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. He also threw for 2,457 yards. So it was unfortunate that he was hurt, but I think he's going to Arkansas. Now, that's interesting because Arkansas is not known as being a powerhouse in the SEC, so maybe he can make them a relevant program again. That would be interesting. But it was, in a way, smart for him to go somewhere. He's going to be the starter at Arkansas. You know he is. They actually had, I think it was Nick Starkel, I think went to Arkansas, but he's going now to San Jose State. So Felipe Franks will be the starter there. Jake Bentley, who is the next quarterback we're going to talk about. He is a senior from South Carolina. He came from South Carolina. Last season he was hurt, and Ryan Helinski came in and did pretty well with the job. So in 2018, though, Bentley had 3,171 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. He is going to Utah, which is an interesting move. They had Tyler Huntley. He goes on to the NFL as an undrafted free agent. I thought he was going to get drafted. I liked him. But Jake Bentley will transfer there to be the starter. I don't think that Jake Bentley is as mobile as Tyler Huntley, not Brett Hundley. But I think he can do pretty well there, be the starter. But it's an interesting 14 interceptions is a lot, but he can probably be a decent player, and I think he'll do well in the Pac-12. It seems, in my opinion, that the Pac-12 always has a lot of quarterbacks that sort of are risky, and that's what Jake Bentley is, looking at the interceptions, but he can also sling it. He had over 3,000 yards. Before we go on to the final 5 quarterbacks to talk about, I want to encourage you to subscribe. I'm not asking you, deliberately, you have to subscribe, but it would be awesome if you did, because I feel that I'm trying to grow this channel, and I love making this content, and I want to sort of feel your guys' presence on what you guys enjoy. I made the switch on this channel to sort of focus on the football market, because that's what I sort of am into, and I know that that's something I will be into for a long time, and it sort of focuses on the football audience over what I had before. So with that being said, my goal, it's a big goal, but my personal goal is to achieve 200 subscribers by 2021. I know that is a big goal, but we've already gained 8 subscribers over the last few months, and we're growing, and I think if you guys can show the support on this podcast, which lets me know that I should keep doing these by liking the video, that would be greatly appreciated. It's okay if you don't. I'm not gonna not like you or anything. It would be greatly appreciated, though, if you would. But with that being said, let's go back to the video, which we got 5 here that I think will probably be a few of them will probably be starters at the schools they're going to, but they're sort of on the break. They're like fringe starters, like they might get it, but it's not a guarantee. The ones I named before, they're gonna be starters, no doubt, except for JT Daniels. So they're gonna be starters for sure. But these ones are names I want to just mention out there because I think they're worth talking about. They probably will be starting quarterbacks, but it's not guaranteed. So I want to start with Anthony Brown. If these are players you might not know for sure, but Anthony Brown is from Boston College. He will be a senior, and he had a pretty good 2018 season. I don't know what really happened in 2019, but he's going to Oregon, and Oregon obviously lost Justin Herbert, which is a big, that's a big loss. He's a great quarterback, at least at the college level, had some